Nobody gets you ready for Utah football more than the KSL Sports Zone.
Ready?
Kyle Whittingham and the Utes return home for a battle against Kansas State. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to talk some Kansas State football, getting ready for the Utes in Kansas State this weekend. Joining us now, host of Locked On Kansas State, Christian Rauh, with us here on Jacob Ben. What's going on, Christian?
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me on. Really excited about this game. It should be a good one for Utah fans, that's for sure.
So I guess that puts into place where you think Kansas State is coming into this. I keep watching and waiting for Kansas State to be, the big spoiler in the Big 12 because of how much hype there was and excitement going into this season and a thought that they were going to be one of the true contenders. And they'll get a little momentum, and then it seems to get dashed. And they did not play well against Oklahoma State, despite the fact that they had won, 2 of their 3 before that. So where is Kansas State as a program heading into this game this weekend?
Yeah, the program is full of peaks and valleys. There's no doubt about that, and I'm right there with you. I've been waiting for them to play spoiler as well. But this Big 12 conference is just such a dog-eat-dog conference with the parity from top to bottom. You never know who's going to win every single week, and I think Kansas State has a chance to play spoiler, but when you look at this program, it's just they've fallen flat this season. Season expectations was being a Big 12 contender. I had them as a potential 10-2 team, something that maybe potentially Utah will find themselves at the end of the season. And injuries, luck, and just really the lack of what they thought the talent might be on this squad just didn't show up. There was a lot of issues with this squad, and I think they're starting to get a taste of what this new NIL and transfer portal era really is in the Midwest.
Give me the Avery Johnson story, because I did not, he's a great player. I did not anticipate the headline of his season this year being about his dad punching his brother. So tell me, why hasn't it been a special year for him?
Yeah, the Dublin curse takes a whole different kind of track this year, right, with that happening? No, honestly.
A little bit, no, in all seriousness, it just hasn't landed.
100%, and, something landed there, but not that. Well, in the case of Avery Johnson, I believe he's a great dual-threat quarterback. I believe he has the talent and the caliber to do it. But this year, I think the surrounding talent around him just wasn't good enough. And obviously with the departure of Dylan Edwards doesn't help, and he never played a single offensive snap in that Week 0 game against Iowa State in Dublin. And the coaches were really adamant in the postgame to say how much they really focused on their play calling to be surrounded around Dylan Edwards. And it was just something that they could not surpass the rest of the season. I believe Avery Johnson has the tools to be a great quarterback and maybe potentially be a quarterback that plays on Sundays and some days. But overall, I just don't think he has the talent surrounded him this season. Wide receivers injured. Wide receivers have been an issue for him his entire collegiate career when it comes to drops and just the amount of sheer talent on there. And then on the offensive line side this year, they did a great job in the pass blocking department, but the run block is not there, and he needs complementary football, and he just didn't get that this year.
I'm trying to think back to Utah's season last year, and it just felt like a lost year entirely, and they only finished with 5 wins and didn't make a bowl game. And I would think Kansas State, regardless of what happens this weekend, is still going to win the last week of the season and go to a bowl game. Does this just feel like a lost year? Does it feel like a bad omen of things to come, or does it feel like something different entirely?
I think you can look at it from both edges of the glass here. I think you can see it as obviously being one of the worst years under the Chris Kleiman era. Even if they win out and go 7-5, this will be their worst season under Chris Kleiman if you take away the COVID year. But then if you look on the bright side, a 7-5 record is the worst year you've had under Chris Kleiman, and that's still a good spot compared to what some of the other programs are in the Big 12. When you look at some of the other programs with longer tenured coaches, like, for example, before this season started at Oklahoma State. So you can look at it from both edges. Obviously, the amount of income and revenue bringing in from the other in-state school in Kansas, bringing in near $300 million to start recruiting and bringing in other things and be more of a football-minded school does not help in-state recruiting. So long picture, I think this could be maybe a wake-up call for Kansas State.
If it goes Kansas State's way this weekend and they pull the upset, how do they do it? What do they want to accomplish?
Oh, man, it's got to be stopping the run. And I think that's just the easiest way to say it. Utah's second best in the country in stopping the run. That's usually a category when you're on the podium for running offenses. That's usually reserved for service academies, right? And that's finding some way to do that this year. Utah's just been absolutely incredible. Kansas State has not been great against stopping the run. They're 77th in the country in doing so. That's not a great number when you're a Power 4 conference and you're sitting there in the middle of the ranks of the country and stopping the run. They've lost a lot of have a lot of injuries to their linebacking core. Austin Romaine, star player for Kansas State, out for the rest of the season. They're going to be having a lot of troubles, I think, in this one. But if they can find a way to slow down the run, maybe force them to pass and get them to have a couple turnovers. Kansas State, before heading into that Texas Tech game a few weeks ago, did lead the country in takeaways. So if they can limit them on the running game, slow them down on the explosive runs, maybe cause a few turnovers, I think I like their chances to stick around with Utah.
What does their summer look like? What big decisions need to be made?
I think the number one decision will be, obviously, if you can find a way for retention. That's something that they worked on last year when they started off 7-1, and then the wheels fell off against Houston towards the end of the season. They wound up only getting to 8 wins on the year. And then I think if you can find a way to get retention, transfer portal, bring some of those star players back, then you ultimately have to look at the coaching staff. I don't think you have to look at the very top of Chris Kleiman. I think he's been a great coach. I think he has the respect of the program and the culture. But I think you might have to make some moves at the coordinator position, especially on the offensive side with Matt Wells.
And that's a name familiar around here, certainly. I was startled when I saw the stat. And maybe I got to pay closer attention that Kansas State has beaten Kansas 17 times in a row.
That's right. Yeah, the Sunflower Showdown streak, 17 years in a row. Last time Kansas has won that game is 2008.
Wow. Is that more about Kansas State or Kansas, would you say?
Well, I think initially it was about more of just Kansas not being a football club, but they've definitely turned it around in the last couple of years with Lance Leipold bringing it back. And now I believe it's more of Kansas State, the fact that they've really focused on, building their program and finding it to be respectful, being a Big 12 contender year in and year out, despite what's happening this year. I think you have to probably give credit for both teams and both programs for what they're doing, but overall over the last 17 seasons, that's definitely been Kansas State's sweet spot.
Well, thank you, Christian, for jumping on with us. We really appreciate it. Let's hope we get a good one this weekend.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us on.
Thanks, Christian. Christian Rauh, host of Locked on Kansas State.
I agree with him that it's probably more likely that this is what happened to Utah last year, and not quite with the level of injuries Utah has suffered. But Kansas State certainly has not escaped the injury bug. At least they had their starting quarterback. But the glass half full, glass half empty, which I think a lot of people, myself included, were looking at Utah last year and trying to figure out what was to come, is that whether they go 7-5, which would be winning out, I don't think they're going to beat Utah, 6-6. If that's the worst your program has been, you've still got a very good program. And Utah's disaster year last year, unfathomably poor, was 5-7, which is not uncommon for most programs. So their ability to turn it around quickly with getting a couple of big transfers in really helped Utah, and Kansas State should be able to do some of that.
I would think so. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't.
And you've got your quarterback coming back, and Avery Johnson is still a top half of the league quarterback.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you're asking him to do, but yeah, I get your point.
You can have a good offense with Avery Johnson.
They've done it.
Yeah.
He's done it.
So that's it.
Yeah.
I don't need him to play on Sundays. Great if he does, but that part of it doesn't really matter to me at all.
No, he's proven he can win. He's proven he's competent. There's no doubt. That's why I asked what the story was.
Yeah. And
apparently it's a LeBron type scenario where you blame his teammates.
It's everybody else.
It's everybody else. No, but that may ring true. And they had, I think, been trying to throw him too much, and I don't think he's that.
Agreed.
So it depends on how you use him. But, yeah, more than capable.
I don't think it's a good design against Utah.
Well, we'll see. I mean, Utah's had quarterbacks run it all over them before. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it could.
I honestly still think the weakness of this Utah team is when teams can't throw the ball. Baylor in the first half was able to stay in that game because they could open up Utah's defense by throwing the ball, confusing Utah's corners, who are good. They're not great this year. And that opens up some opportunities to get some big runs, as is the design. Teams that want to run on Utah, I don't think are going to have success.
All right, we wrap up the Jake and Ben show. Get you ready for Hanson Scotty G. Coming up next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.